The ocean kills quietly. During World War II, it killed thousands, not with bullets or bombs, but with thirst. Men survived shipwrecks and air crashes only to die surrounded by water they could not drink. And yet, hidden in lifeboats and survival manuals, there was a simple, almost elegant trick that turned deadly seawater into fresh drinking water. No electricity, no chemicals, just physics, patience, and human ingenuity. This is the story of how soldiers learned to steal life back from the sea. Dying of thirst in the middle of the ocean. By the early 1940s, navies and air forces had a brutal realization. Survival at sea was not mainly about sharks, storms, or exposure. It was about water. A human can last weeks without food, but only days without fresh water. Drinking seawater only speeds up death, pushing the kidneys into overdrive and dehydrating the body even faster. Shipwreck survivors reported the same nightmare again and again. Lips cracking, tongues swelling, hallucinations. Men surrounded by endless blue, knowing that one wrong decision could kill them. Military planners could not ignore this anymore. If crews were going to survive long enough to be rescued, they needed a way to make fresh water where none existed. The answer did not come from advanced machinery. It actually came from an old, almost ancient principle. You know, the simple science the ocean just couldn't fight. Salt water becomes deadly because of the salt. Remove the salt and the water is safe. That idea sounds obvious, but separating salt from water is honestly harder than it seems. Boiling seawater works, sure, but ships' lifeboats did not carry fuel or metal stills. What they did have, though, was sunlight. When water evaporates, salt stays behind. When vapour cools, it becomes fresh water again. This process, distillation, has been known for centuries. Ancient sailors understood it in crude forms. What World War II did was turn it into a compact, standardized survival tool that anyone could use under extreme stress. The result was the solar still, the lifeboat still that saved lives. By the middle of the war, Allied forces began issuing inflatable solar stills to pilots and sailors operating over open ocean. At first glance, they looked unimpressive. A clear plastic dome, a dark basin underneath, a small collection tube or pouch. That was it. Seawater was poured into the basin. The black surface absorbed heat, warming the water faster. As the sun climbed, the water evaporated. Salt and contaminants stayed behind. The vapour rose, hit the cooler plastic surface, condensed into droplets, and trickled down into a separate collection channel. What came out was clean, drinkable water. No moving parts, no fire, no noise, just sunlight doing the work. In ideal conditions, a single solar still could produce around a litre of fresh water per day. That may not sound like much, but it was often the difference between life and death. What made the solar still brilliant was not just the science. It was the design logic. It assumed the worst. No tools, no training, no strength left in the body. A wounded pilot drifting under a tropical sun did not need to understand thermodynamics. He needed something that worked automatically. Pour water in, wait, drink. Military survival manuals emphasized discipline. Do not drink seawater. Do not waste energy. Set up the still early. Protect it from punctures. Ration the output carefully. Men who followed these rules dramatically increased their odds of survival. There are documented cases of downed airmen surviving over a week at sea, largely because of solar stills. In some lifeboats, the still became the most valuable object on board, guarded more carefully than food or flares. The darker lessons were, learned the hard way. Not every experiment succeeded. Early versions of solar stills used inferior plastics that degraded under intense sunlight. Some designs leak salt water into the collection system, contaminating the output. Others produced water too slowly in cloudy conditions. The military adapted quickly. Materials improved, instructions became clearer. Survival kits standardized their components. By the later years of the war, solar stills were a normal part of long-range overwater missions. The hard truth was that this knowledge came at a cost. Many early survivors learned through failure, through thirst, through watching crewmates make fatal mistakes. Their suffering shaped the systems that saved others later. What soldiers were taught about drinking at sea. One of the most important lessons drilled into crews was restraint. Thirst creates panic. Panic leads to bad decisions. Survival instructors emphasized small, controlled sips of distilled water rather than gulping. The body absorbs water better when intake is steady. Men were warned not to drink their own urine, a myth that persisted despite clear evidence of harm. They were taught to shade themselves, reduce sweating, and avoid unnecessary movement. Water production mattered, but, water conservation mattered just as much. This mindset was part of the genius. The solar still was not a miracle device. It was one piece of a larger survival system built around discipline, knowledge, and respect for the limits of the human body. Why this matters beyond World War II. The war ended, but the idea did not disappear. Solar stills remain part of modern survival training. Variations are used in disaster relief, remote communities, and emergency preparedness. The same principle can be recreated with household materials, a plastic sheet, a container, and sunlight. What World War II proved is that high technology is not always the answer. Sometimes the most reliable solutions are the ones that use forces already present in the environment: sun, heat, time. This lesson feels especially relevant today. As fresh water becomes more scarce in many parts of the world, simple distillation techniques are once again gaining attention. Not as replacements for infrastructure, but, as backup systems. It's really just quiet insurance against failure. And honestly, that's the real takeaway from this forgotten trick. The ocean did not change. Salt water is still deadly. What changed was human understanding of how to work with nature, instead of, well, fighting it. The solar still did not overpower the sea. It borrowed energy from the sun and let physics do the rest. That mindset, you see, defines survival across history. From ancient fire-making to early desalination, the most effective techniques are rarely flashy. They're calm, efficient, and, well, almost humble. World War II forced this lesson into brutal clarity, and the men who survived because of it carried that knowledge forward, often without fanfare, into training manuals, survival kits, and quiet footnotes of history. Why forgotten skills still matter? Modern technology makes it easy to forget how fragile our systems really are. Desalination plants, bottled water, and purification tablets feel permanent. They are not. History shows that resilience comes from layered knowledge, not single solutions. The ocean genius trick of solar distillation reminds us that survival knowledge does not expire. It waits. And when things go wrong, it becomes priceless again. If you value these forgotten skills, if you believe that understanding the past makes us stronger in the present, stay connected to legacy of survival. Like the video, share it with someone who appreciates real history, and subscribe for more stories where human ingenuity quietly outsmarted impossible odds.